And we do have Chief Busick with us online, so you know.
Oh, he's early. I thought he was gonna go last.
I think that's planned, unless
Okay.
he says
See
otherwise.
what works best for him.
Yeah. Chief, did you want to go earlier, or do you still want to keep the order?
I don't mind. I can jump in and go first. I'm ready to go. Whatever you guys like to do.
Well, I would like to welcome everybody to our work session. We're covering budget today here in Idaho Springs for September 18th. And before we kick off, I just would like to introduce Maria is a best and brightest candidate with us. And I would just like to go around and have everybody say hi and introduce yourself, starting with Kate.
Hi, Maria. I'm Kate Collier. I've been here in Idaho Springs for about 25 years and on council off and on for going on 12 years.
And planning commission.
And planning commission for
16 or
16
something,
years, yeah. And then county planning for about 4 years. So I've done a little bit of everything. Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Mark Valley. I've lived here for 16 years. And I'm the board for about 4 years now. We're going through the election.
And Art has a special expertise that's quite rare in parking. So we tap him on the shoulder for that. And then, of course, you know Andy, you know Jonathan. Jerry?
Hi, I'm Jeremy Jones, Fairwood Council.
And you also have a bit of specialty. What's that? Well, I'm thinking of a fire EMT.
Yeah, I'm the assistant, I'm the operations chief.
So he's
Whatever that's worth.
a really good person to have on your council, right? And then John
Bruce, and Ryder, for a while, here in Johnson. Had great best and brightest work for me in Georgetown.
Oh. And John also has an area of expertise. John, if you would tell her, you've got a few cities under your belt with this.
Yeah, but I work in Morrison, Georgetown, stuff like that. I'm on I-70. Technical team for big project coming up. Yeah, fighting for pollutants, they're putting in the creek.
But for the
Water
superintendent, just retired from a couple different cities and we delighted to have him. And Scott Pinero. Hello, Scott, Maria with the Best and Brightest program.
Okay,
We're trying our best to recruit her.
okay.
And everybody just went around and said hi and please introduce yourself.
Hi, Scott Pinell.
And Scott is a long-term business and business development. And we also have Ed with our water wastewater and Paul, maintenance superintendent as well. These are folks that are just doing phenomenal job. We're delighted to have it.
Mayor, one other on screen.
Oh, yeah, Chief. Sorry. Hey, Police Chief Nathan Busick.
Hi, and welcome to Idaho Springs, and we're excited to have you.
Well, I have encouraged Maria not to stay for the budget because I just want to end it on a high note.
Thank you.
But anyways, good to meet you and your mom.
Thank you.
Have a safe trip back.
Thank you.
See
It was nice meeting
Thank you,
everybody.
Maria.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Be in touch.
Thank you.
And I guess if Chief is ready,
I think we might as well go.
Yeah.
Go first.
heck, and we wish your mom the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Just everyone should have his one-page summary of budget in front of you. If you don't, let me know, but I think everyone has a copy. Okay, go ahead, Chief.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for doing this. A couple quick things about how things are going. I think things are going very well. our agency. We did do testing last week, and I haven't heard the results of that yet. So hopefully we can get our last position filled. I did want to mention, I had mentioned privately to a couple of council members, we did have probably the biggest drug bust in the history of our organization. One of our officers made a traffic stop. This is about a month ago, and we'll be doing a press release here shortly. We were working with the federal government on that case, and so we really didn't want to put too much information out, but we ended up with 86 grams of fentanyl, which was a large amount of narcotics to take off the street. So we're very proud of that effort, and that officer is going to receive a commendation for that. And like I said, we'll put a press release out here in the next week or two. So that's just kind of a quick synopsis. I think, like I said, things are going well. Everyone's very excited about the new building and the opportunity that presents for folks. And can't say enough about how excited everybody is. So I'm going to jump into some of the things that we're looking at and that we're wanting I want to let council know that I believe are important. One of the last big sort of big ticket items comes at a cost is the in-car camera systems. Most agencies have had cameras in their cars since the 80s. So for whatever reason, and I know actually the Idaho Springs Police Department did used to have cameras in their cars a long time ago. And so we've moved to body cameras, but the in-car camera system affords a number of things. So I've met with the city prosecutor, Suzanne. She's obviously very much pro camera as far as cases when we have violations that we write people into municipal court and such. I've also spoken with members at the district attorney's office when we have more serious offenses, things like DUI and other things as eluding, that kind of thing, that it's helpful for prosecution, successful prosecution. As I mentioned, the DA's office, one of the things that I thought was interesting, there was a tragedy about 2 months ago in Summit County where an officer and a deputy ended up having to use deadly force in a situation. And, I don't have it in front of you guys, but this newspaper article that was published September 1st, it specifically mentions that the in-car camera system is really what provided the correct vantage point to make that a justifiable shooting. I mean, it's a tragedy, but though the officer and deputy were cleared by the DA in the 5th Judicial District, which is our district. So I thought that was interesting because that was specifically mentioned as being a key piece in that case. The other thing is it helps us internally as far as our own driving behaviors. Our sergeants audit body camera. They'll look at a couple random body cameras every. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And so that's another thing for us to do as far as the in-car camera system, to make sure that our driving behavior is appropriate and safe. And that's one of the things that unfortunately can get officers either in trouble or get them in a bad situation as far as their driving behaviors. So that's a big one, and that's really would be my number one priority. It is expensive, and it's because of the data or the storage. That's what drives some of that cost. And really, you're basically renting the equipment for 5 years, and they replace it. It's also, I think it's important to note that the camera systems tie into the body camera system. So when an officer turns on their lights to stop somebody, it automatically turns on the in-car camera system and it turns on the body camera system, and it captures the 30 to 45 seconds prior to when it was activated. So it's important because by law, we're required to activate our body cameras, and we have human beings that are working as police officers. So on occasion, not more than a couple times have I had an officer have to come in and say, "Hey, chief, I'm letting you know I took action, I stopped someone, and I actually forgot to turn on my body camera." So that would eliminate that error, that human error, by having that in-car camera system. The other thing that's also of note that I'm not sure if council is aware of, we purchased um, a device for our holsters, so that when we unholster our firearm, our body camera automatically turns on. So that's something that we did this year. It wasn't real expensive, so I just went ahead and made that purchase. I thought it was very important. And then we also, it's important to note that when the lights come on a car or anyone on holsters, it turns on everybody's body camera in that vicinity. For instance, I was on a crash with the sheriff's department, and the highway patrol showed up and turned their lights on their car, and it turned my body camera on. So these systems are they're integrated, which is fantastic. I'll just go through these and then obviously open it for questions if everyone's okay with that. The Colorado Rangers, that's obviously a very important resource. They are having a cost increase, really due to insurance cost increase in our profession. That's just the world we live in, and that's part of that cost increase. There's two that are new on here, and I just throw this out there to the council and open to, again, hearing what you all think. But the Clear Creek County Advocates are such a vital, important part of dealing with victims in our community. We currently contribute nothing to that group. They are grant funded, but what we're finding is we want to make sure that we're doing our part. Because if for some reason we were in a little bit of a crisis with the advocates, if we lose the advocates, that responsibility is going to fall directly on the police department and the city to fund. So where I'm going with this is we would like to potentially budget a little bit of money for the advocates. And then by the same token, there's the new chat team, the mental health team that is answering calls countywide. That's another program that I'd like to see the city contribute to that effort, because we're still scratching the surface on the value of this to see if that's going to sort of lower some of our call volume to some of these calls. It just started a couple months ago, but it's something that I think the city should consider. And then I'll move on to the equipment. Typically, we have, in order to keep our vehicle fleet functional, we've been replacing about a vehicle a year, and I would recommend that we do the same thing. And then the last two items are, I've talked with the city about this before, but the electric bicycles program. I think that as we move to the new building, we would be able to house those right there, and it would make us much more visible in the historic district, in the parking lots, in the future parking deck. And then also with the $250,000 donation from Trek for the mountain bike pathway, I think that it's something the city needs to consider moving forward. And then the last thing, this one's kind of makes me giggle, but the reason I giggle is we have people coming out of the academy now that are using a different sort of sight platform with their handguns, which is called a red dot sight. This has been around for a long time for rifles. Our rifles all have red dots, but now the handguns, you have to have a specific style of handgun and holster to use a red dot platform. So what's happening is we have, for example, Officer Romo, who just came out of an academy and it just got on his own. He was the top shot in that academy class using a red dot sight. But currently we don't offer that as a standard piece of issued equipment. And we have what's called iron sights, really, which is what I grew up on. That ages me a little bit. And so this is the direction. This isn't my direction as far as I don't want a red dot. I'm happy with my iron sights. So I'm kind of the old dog and not wanting to learn the new tricks. But we have newer officers coming in and some investing in this themselves. And I think that this is something that we need to move towards as far as best practices. So those are some of the things that I have on here. And obviously, I'm open to any ideas and any sort of priorities that council might want to share. So I'll open it up and stop talking.
I have a couple questions. Is that okay? Chief, so the car that you're replacing, is that replacing or getting another one for the new staff?
It would be replacing, from what I understand.
Would we be fully fleeted if we got that car for the, hopefully having a full staff?
I'll have to research whether or not our fleet is actually, if I believe it'd be a replacement vehicle. So we still have one spare car from what I understand, or one car for that employee. So it would be a replacement for a high mileage vehicle from what I understand.
And are we in the cycle where we should be looking at this every year, like for the next couple of years or every other year? What do you think is going to be the reasonable?
I think at this point, it's probably every year. I think it's possible that we could potentially skip a year. But at this point, I would certainly plan on every year. Typically, we're rotating cars out at about 120,000 miles. That's where you start to sort of put more money into it than what you're getting out of it. The other thing is that the wait time on getting things fixed is just kind of crazy. So
I agree. My other question is, I'm going to go back to, I know that we're moving away, and it looks like the county is moving away from using the county dispatch. And we're going to go, Jeff, is there a savings to the police department there that some of this could be kind of absorbed into that savings?
yes, I anticipate that. In fact, I think that I'm going to do a presentation about the JeffCom option at the next council meeting work session, I believe. I can't tell if Andy's shaking his head.
And then, I'm sorry, did you get?
And so let me keep going with that. So as it stands for the 2024 budget, we're looking, if the JeffCom transition occurs, we're looking at likely no later than July 1. Hopefully it would be sooner than that. And we would see a small cost savings this first year possibly, keeping in mind that there's some one-time costs that are associated with that transition. We would, without a doubt, see cost savings in 2025. We would see upwards of anywhere from 100,000 to 200,000, probably more like $200,000 savings in 2025.
Okay. And then the last one was the Glock, the models. That sounds like something that's going to be on demand with new staff.
It definitely is. And like I said, some of the people that grew up and started this profession like I did 22, 23 years ago when this technology didn't exist, really don't know better. There's some people that they're just gun nuts. I'm not really a gun nut, but that have already wanted to transition to this new platform. Frankly, there's a number of reasons that it's actually the way to go. And I can go into some of the specifics, but the bottom line is it's more like you can keep both your eyes open when you're doing building clearing versus having to kind of keep your one eye sort of focused on the sites and lining the sites up. It is much easier as far as when people are learning how to use a firearm.
Sure. And you don't have to give me any explanations. I trust you. That was all I had.
All right, anybody else?
Yeah, I don't know if you got this far on the building yet, but are you anticipating putting in heated garages?
I don't know if I heard the whole question. I heard something about the building. What was the specific thing, Mr. Curtis?
Yeah, I was asking if you're gonna put in heated garages over there.
Oh,
It'll be-
okay. It's from what it looks like early on, the square footage and the potential, maybe possibly enclosing the drive-through lane area would allow for one vestibule, but it doesn't appear that it's probably going to be not cost effective for us to go down a path of actually having garages for the vehicles. And I'll tell you, my experience, most agencies, certainly larger agencies, don't necessarily have garages for their fleets. And that space is likely not gonna allow for that.
And the e-bikes, they'll be for the trail and for Virginia Canyon.
Yes, so they would be used both in the city, obviously within the city, and then also have the ability to go down all the bike paths that are obviously just being finished by CDOT, and then up into the mountain bike trails. What I'm concerned is when we have fire, if and when we have fire bans, that people may go up there and have a campfire, or people start camping up in those areas, and that is all city jurisdiction.
So
What about maintenance on the vehicles? Is that in the police budget or not?
Yes, it's in the more detailed spreadsheet of the entire police budget.
So just the high points?
Yes.
Correct.
And I know this year we're probably not doing it, but are we looking at any city vehicles to go to e-vehicles in the future sometime? And as it evolves?
Not that I know of. And Chief, the police department isn't looking at that either, right?
No, not at this point. I think the technology is obviously exciting, and I think that there's potential opportunity for police work. I'd kind of like to sit back and watch how it's being implemented in some other places. I think we have some challenges with the highway and the mountains and some other things. So that would be my recommendation for right now.
All right, anything further?
Mayor
Chief,
and Council, I might just mention that we do have a couple of work sessions that are scheduled in the very near future related to police. One is in a couple of weeks, we'll have a work session on the work that we're doing with the architect on repurposing the bank building. And this will be on the programming of the needs for the police department, the police station. So that's coming up in a few weeks. Next week, as I believe the chief mentioned, we will have an update on transitioning the dispatch to JeffCom. And so those are a couple things that are coming up related to what the council was asking about. We're going to get more detail on those topics, which will certainly have a bearing on the budget. One other item I might mention is also next week, we just scheduled the Clear Creek Fire Authority to come in to give an update on the fire authority and a request for increased funding to provide staffing here in the city. So it's a public safety item. It's not directly related to police, but it's a public safety item. I just wanted to mention that to you because if we make this transition to JeffCom, we could see some substantial cost savings that be allocated towards the increased cost or the increased funding, potential funding to the fire authority, provide some 24-hour staffing here in the city. Just wanted to give you a little idea of what's coming up on some of the work sessions.
And Andy, I appreciate that. And you hear words like if, because the county has not made the decision. They're looking at all the figures and they're weighing it right now. So I think we would hope that that's the decision that's made, and we'll let council know as soon as we hear anything. But right now, that decision hasn't been.
Clear Creek Borough Authority is going to sign a letter to opt out. Clear Creek or JeffCom.
Oh,
Isn't our decision independent of that?
well, Art, it would just be less expensive and it would be, shall I say, a lot smoother if we could go at the same time.
So I'm gonna elaborate.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, the goal is from the county level, the commissioners gave staff direction to get with the municipal partners and basically ask us, are you on board with JeffCom or are you not? And if they're on board,
they would be asked to sign on to the letter that comes from the county commission to JEFCOM requesting, basically, formally requesting to become part of JEFCOM. So they're supposed to be reaching out to individuals and all the other municipal partners, because the park authority already made a decision last Wednesday, so that's already been conveyed. And then that would be the next stage of that, is send that letter with all the partners to JEFCOM, formally requesting to be part of it, which allows the process to start with JEFCOM decision. Then we can turn yes or no if we want to accept the process and do in that, which is the next phase. But that's what is left of 2 o'clock and
That request will become, formal request will be coming from the county. Is that-
Brian should be contacting you to see where we stand in the county. Okay, in regard to that, and then lining up the partners, we will send a letter. We as Brigham County will let you go JEFCOM will be along with the following partners agencies and some partner agencies. I don't see it not including everybody, if they don't. And then we have to report to the including so that they will be a partner. They don't pay.
And let us not forget that when we started this, we were an independent part of that part.
Yes.
And the others may be now looking at it because of that. But I don't want to be discouraged to see them, I think that we should do that.
And you're right, and Empire Falls, we voted to go to JEFCOM. Empire Falls, I think the following week. Yeah, or two, within the next meeting, they had exactly the same discussion that we had here, they agreed. So, from my conversations, I don't see anybody saying, no, we don't want to do that. It is a substantial financial savings for all the agencies involved. Really no loss of service by my perspective, looking at all the details. And I think it's gonna be a good service, it will do. I can say that, that's how I feel. So it's just a matter of going formalities now by, I think, October 22nd or so, it's the next JEFCOM meeting. Get the letter formalized, get it before their board the week before, and then they can make a formal decision when we have next steps. But they are vetting some of those. Some of the ancillary services are not for Idaho Springs per se from dispatch. As much as the smaller municipalities have questions on. We don't notarize, how do we do that? But we don't have to do warrants, but sheriff's office does warrants. So they're in a different situation as far as how they're configured in Idaho Springs. So that's where they're working through some of those details of cost share for employee. What ratio that would break out for Empire and Georgetown. We're in a good position.
Arthur, I think you raised a good point, though, that the city and the council took official action last fall to put the county on notice that we intended to leave, keep that option open. And we may want to just to make sure we keep our options open, extend that beyond the end of this year, because we were saying we would want to keep our option open to leave by January 1st of 24. And now it appears that everybody's going, I think it probably will happen, but just in case things go sideways, if we still want to exercise our option under the agreement to be able to leave independently, we might want to consider the next month or two re-upping that and saying, yep, we're still intending to leave.
And Andy, the qualifier, of course, is if JEFCOM would be willing to take us independently.
You're exactly right.
You know.
Initially, they said yes, but then there's been, some question about that, I guess.
So hence my point, it would be smoother if we could all go as one.
Better situation.
Yeah.
All right, anything further? Well, Chief, thank you very much. Wish your mom the best. Absolutely.
Thank you guys for letting me do it this way. We'll see you at the next meeting.
I bet.
Thank you, Chief.
We gotta go administration
Yes.
next. Okay.
Mayor and council, I provided with a kind of a breakdown of the admin and community promotion budgets. On the first page, I have a couple of the highlights, although there are a couple I want to mention in the other pages. In the administration budget, a couple of these requests are related to the building. We have our building renovation project that's going to be happening over the next year or so. That involves the bathroom renovation and the exterior renovation. I would like to see if we might coordinate replacing the carpet in this building with that project. They're in pretty rough shape, and this is one of our most public-facing buildings. I think that it's something that we need to consider. We've also been talking about potentially renovating the council chambers and this office space up here. One of the reasons we'd like to do that is to make this more functional for how we actually use the space. When we have it for court, it would be potentially helpful to have a door over here for the prosecutor to use. And we would really like to combine our clerk staff so they can work as a team. Presently, Kelsey works downstairs just because it's too tight up here. And we've had multiple desks up here in the past, but we think we could redo this space for relatively cheap in a way that would be helpful. We'd also like to consider moving the dais a little bit and bringing it out so it's a little bit easier to get around back there. It's a little, I'm sure you guys are all most aware of how difficult it is. I have on here the replacement of clerk staff desktops with laptops. Wonder if this has already happened, but over the last few years, we've increased our ability to either work remotely or in different locations in this building as is necessary. I'd like to continue that. We have the ability to run our phone systems and our pay systems and everything over a laptop. So if we do have a snow day, I can just turn City Hall on remotely and we don't have to, you know, A, they're still able to work and do their jobs, and B, we still have a client-facing operation. Or if there's COVID or something, again, we can just work remotely when necessary. I have on here, expand the scope of our janitorial staff. We only clean bathrooms once a week, and these are public bathrooms, and they get pretty heavily used. And I think that we could look at maybe a contract, maybe work with Paul, like maybe there could be a contract to clean Citizens Park restrooms, maybe even CRC Park restrooms and the city restrooms, maybe a little bit more frequently. And I don't know if that's something that we haven't talked about that, but we definitely need to look at City Hall restrooms and see if we can implement a little bit more. We had talked this year about doing an update to our municipal code and comprehensive plan. Since I have taken over as planner, I've noticed several problems in our code that need to be addressed for one reason or another. It's one of those things that happens over time. You just end up with some work that needs to get done. And our comprehensive plan was last done in 2017. So it's time for an update to that. So it wouldn't be writing a new comp plan, it would be just updating it and making it work for where we are right now. That project could potentially be grant funded on both sides, and that would be what my intention is, to try to see if we could get funded to develop of that. We're gonna tentatively submit an application for that project to One Opportunity next month. But if not, we might be able to phase that project and do it in smaller chunks, because comprehensive plans can take 18 months and can be a little bit expensive potentially, just depending on how they're done. One of the big things I'd like to request this year is an increased training budget for admin staff, specifically like our utility billing clerk and our other clerks. One of the things that we do here is we use the software called Cassell. And Cassell is very complex. It works great. It's probably the best software to use, but we need to start committing to sending them to training every year. John Curtis told me he used to send staff every year for training. I'd like to do the same.
So that's a good idea.
There are a couple of admin cell phones. Jared had one, which is still turned on. I have one that is used for passwords only. But I think that we could look at this budget and think about what we're doing with these cell phones. It kind of goes hand in hand. I have another request in here to look at our VoIP system this year. Our VoIP phone system, which is our internet phone system we use at City Hall and all the properties, is relatively cheap, but I think technology has improved to the point where we might even be able to get it for free or really reduce cost. So I'd like to look at that and see if those cell phones are still necessary. It may be good to consider whether or not we want certain admin staff members to have cell phones all the time. I do end up taking a lot of calls on my personal phone just because people have that number. But it's something that I think we can look at, and I think it's just time to look at those contracts and really look at it. I have on here our city GIS system. We have purchased a GIS system several years ago. We have a desktop-based version, which is just in-house. And over time, we only have one user on that, and it has become a little clumsy to use. So we have started using Clearbase, which is the county GIS more. I'd like to transition our system either to a straight cloud-based system that's on the internet, and there's several softwares that do it, primarily Esri and Google, where all of our stuff would be online, and we would use like a lot of their mapping tools. They update more frequently than we're ever going to be able to do. So we'll have, one place where that matters, Colorado Boulevard, where CRC Park is different now. So we'd have up-to-date maps of everything we went to their cloud-based system. Or potentially there might be an option to collaborate with county GIS because we use Clear Maps anyway. And so basically what we would do is maybe upload all of our files and we get a little better access and see what that might look like. Because the county would really like to collaborate where it is possible. Yeah, Esri is really, yeah. Yeah, that'd be my preference too.
This way that I know to get quality mapping. With staff on the desktop or remote.
And we can upload like our sheet files for like water lines and that
I
stuff.
can upload all of your information that you go layers, you go project layers, also I need to dig and we'll work from here to here looking for something. You guys can upload a layer for that 2 block area and hand it to me. You have a map of what you're looking for.
That's right here, brother.
I know.
Ah.
But long term, there's some stuff that you hand it to your contractors. Esri does some amazing things.
Yeah.
And it is remote access. So
That would be,
user for me.
that would definitely be my preference is Esri. And that's what we know really too. And we do have a lot of shape files downstairs of things that we don't have on map. So. I'd like to, the digital streaming equipment in here, we got this through a COVID grant. And there's nothing wrong with it, but I would really like to be able to have a camera that sees people when they do public comment. So right now you just see the side of their head. So what I'd like to do is mount a camera over here so that you can actually see them. There's also an upgrade for this camera that focuses on the person talking. And I'd like to look into that because do you guys have one like that? Or the county does for sure.
The county does it. It's worth the investment. When you have a public meeting, you have a public spoken session. It does focus on the person talking. You capture the entire meeting versus just, for example. It would still be investment.
We can maybe move that camera just to focus on speaker, and then I would be able to switch from my position. So I think that's a relatively small upgrade. It probably, I mean, it's the camera's not cheap, but it's not. It's probably less than $5,000. We would shop it out or we did anything. Another project I have that I'd like to consider is transitioning the city website and digital services. There's a couple of municipal website platforms that are around, primarily these two that I put here, Civics Plus and Granicus. They have a full-fledged of services, everything from community engagement to public meeting management to the website. Our website is free and it's offered through the state. And it's okay, but it's very difficult to work on. And it's difficult to navigate and it could be a lot better. The problem with these services are they're a little pricey and they're annual. So I think you could easily spend $20,000 a year on a website through one of them. But that being said, Civics Plus is what we do our mini code through. That's where we put our code online. And I don't think we have to spend nearly that. And so I have asked for a couple of quotes from these websites to see what they actually cost. But I think that the user experience improvement would be dramatic. And that's something that I think might be worth looking at a little bit. I have this digital plan review table. We typically get paper plan sets here in planning, and that is difficult for a planning commission because we have to deliver them a full plan set every time. It's difficult for staff because looking at a plan set on a little monitor is just not great. These plan sets are like essentially a 65-inch monitor that's touchscreen that's mounted either on the wall or on the platform, and you can look at the plans there. It would allow us to take digital plans only if we wanted to, but it would also allow us to much more easily go through these review processes. The one I was looking at is about $8,500. And it's not a have to have, it's just a thing that I think might make our lives a little bit easier around here. The last three things I have, the big ones are consider maybe a new FTE that could help a little bit with administrative code enforcement and potentially like meter reads and things like that, non-technical utilities work that we have out in the field. I was kind of thinking of this person as just a catch-all person who could help with some of these tasks when other departments have other duties to do. Like if we have like a sign that needs to be checked out or something like that for enforcement. It's been a question that's come up is how we are looking at administrative enforcement things, less PD issues. So I thought about maybe we could do like an FTE that could kind of fill some of these roles.
What cost is that?
I think that we would, it depends on how we set it up. Because I had also considered if we take parking management in-house, they might be able to help participate in that too. I think that a person like that would likely be making somewhere in the range of, depending, if it was a full-time position and doing all that work, it's probably a $50,000 to $60,000 a year job. Just off the kind of what I'm guessing from what I've seen on CML and everything. So we'd have to do a salary survey to see exactly what we want and then the benefits would be on top of that. So.
Right,
it's
so
just-
this isn't really a fully constructed job at this point.
Yeah, not really. It's just a thing that we've been noticing that we might have increased capacity with some kind of staff member like that. So that might even be a part-time position.
So if I may just add, at one time, Zach's position was in administration. And it was a code enforcement officer position. Yeah, you remember that. And then our chief at the time, our new chief at the time, made a strong case for having code enforcement, that position over in the police department to try to have the outreach more from the police department as far as code enforcement. So, but what John's touching on is that what we see as a need in the admin is things that aren't police related, more administrative related. It'd be nice to have that person more out in the field to assist us with enforcement, sign code and other zoning code and things like that. Zach certainly does some of that in his job, but having someone who reports directly to John and the planner, we see that could be a good tool. So that's the reason they ask.
So this particular position isn't so much about parking or weeds, we're talking about enforcement of the big codes, if you will, like
Zoning.
building code and
Zoning
sign
regulations.
codes, that there's a couple things down on the east end of town that are obviously glaringly
Right
in
now,
need of recognition.
and our PD has other priorities.
Right, I don't expect them to do it.
Yeah,
I just
so-
wanted to know, yeah.
That would give us the ability, and then like some of these like leader reads, if there's work like that, and we need to prove it's not technical, it would be helpful to just have somebody help me coordinate with that. We also would like to consider, and this is along with Public Works, but that antenna system that we considered with Neptune that allows us to remove this from City Hall could potentially be another project we'd like to look at. That could meet the same goal.
Great. Thank you.
I have on here. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So one other position that's related to this is whether we want to bring a building inspector position in this. Because we contracted for many years, but we think that we ought to take a look at whether it makes sense and serve our city's needs better to have a full-time building inspector in-house. Now, this position John's talking about maybe could be combined with such a position. So you have someone who's a building inspector who has the certifications to enforce the international codes, building code, residential code, the other codes, but also be able to fill some of these needs. So we are looking at that as well as a possibility. It's a lot to ask in one position, but I think it is possible.
Right.
That would be a higher salary for sure. To get someone who's certified, you know, to enforce the codes, you're looking at probably $20,000-$30,000 more. I don't think so. From what I'm seeing.
What do we pay out?
Just say so.
We'll be looking more closely at that, but.
And I think we might have someone or ones that would be willing to share with us. Let's just say there are some other towns that have felt that they didn't have the best customer experience. And with what they pay out, you know, they would be willing to share.
So,
Another possibility to share.
There's always your shelf safety from the building code perspective. With historic properties. If you get a new inspector, there's no gray, there's no gray. It's not shall within the code, and the code is that way, and that causes staff time to be used to negotiate the code or clarify code. That's where having an inspector in-house benefits the city. They know the town. They know the residents, they know the projects, they understand the policies that go behind it. They've got
Just the mindset of the city itself in regards to its
It's Hollywood
historic
Health Planning
buildings,
Commission, so they could show up and answer questions on those.
right?
System. Will probably help with Airbnb permitting and enforcement. Right, all of that stuff are unpermitted construction in town, because Zach does not have time to do that. And we know what's going on. And one way to catch you is to have someone do it.
All the time.
Nobody has bathroom, right? There's so many advantages just for the city alone to have a dedicated person who is fully ICC, fully qualified, understands the code, understands the community, very familiar with staff.
I agree with you, Jeremy. I think this is bigger than just this one position though. I think
Well,
what you're
it is.
saying is, it's like, it's keeping all eyes on the city while also having somebody in office to do a lot of the work that needs to get done that's legitimate. And when I say legitimate, I mean not enforcing the rules on people that are breaking the law.
There's two FTEs, you have a building inspector, and you have an administrative enforcement person that works directly with
Right.
that individual and Jonathan on whatever that is. I think there's probably more work out there than I think we even realize. It's currently going undone or unseen just from the lack of staff or the lack of staff hours. Finding the amount of time during the week, and I think we would catch a lot of things, and we would avert a lot of problems, save a lot of staff time. And you find somebody doing something in that building permit, you have to go through that whole process of stop work, and that's a huge amount of staff time that people avoided by having an individual
I agree.
that they're at the onset, says, oh, stop for a day, let's talk about this. They follow this.
Good examples. of
Perfect
town,
example,
yeah.
they're all over town, they're all over the community.
I think it'd be a great idea. I think one of the possible challenges is that every year to year, we have a different amount of building, and permits would support that position. If there's slow building years, then supporting that wage is a little harder than, we're building projects right now, so I think we could support it no problem. I don't know if that's one of the past challenges, but it
That's
seems
why we-
like that might be,
It was why we
When
always
it's
sort of
slow.
outsourced.
when it's slow, it's hard to support your buildings. Maybe. But I think
But as a
there's
shared
definitely a
possibility.
need for it. And if we could have them just inspect and take care of some of the things Jeremy's pointed out, I think it would pay for itself.
Also change your short-term rental units to require inspection on the basis of feet.
100%.
Because currently, if you get your short-term rental license, you go through the process, you get your fire inspection, go through your code review, and you're good. If you make a change 7 months into that, there is no way to enforce that because nobody knows what's happening.
I flat out tell you right now, we're not
Yeah.
watching that short term rentals at all.
Well, there's no way to do it.
No, we don't have staff.
No staff to do it, no staff time to do it. No formal system in place to ensure it happens. Where renewals would allow that to happen with a fee, which covers the position, and also make sure that the renewals still meet the criteria. And if they don't, there's a whole list of people I'm sure that would like to have a permit that are willing to follow the rules, whatever law. Doing the meeting code and all that, cleaning all that stuff up. as part of it, and that person will follow that process. And the code and stuff.
So will they also do like, water and sewer building code enforcement?
I would like to do that. That was kind of why I had the water sewer thing here. Patty has done a really good job from the admin side of learning about like how this all works. But I think one of the things we notice is that they're like you said, code enforcement, there's probably more work here than
Yeah, I think
we could find.
I see, I think that needs to be done too.
Right, and I think that would be something we would like to do. We know we have backflow issues, not issues, but we have to work on backflows, we have to work on, I think restack inspections is another area where we could do a better customer service job. Maybe take that in-house a little bit more than we do. But I think we could look at where we might have some of these bits that might fit in an admin side, an administrative department person or public works person, however that works out to look at that stuff.
Or how far are you guys gone on this so far? Because as a council member, I want you to take this go with it. I don't know, it seems like feeling at council that we're in favor of you going forward and trying to figure out.
And that's the purpose of this work session, is to just get some direction, thoughts, field questions from council on things that you like, maybe don't like. So we'll do a little more research on this, and we'll have more opportunity to talk about this.
And if I could also, I think it gives certain cities and towns a black eye that really we weren't looking for. Because when you got somebody that's coming out to an inspection and seemingly has not a lick of common sense and has no idea the ramifications of this building being built in 1880 or something, it doesn't look very good for the city. And it's not us. We're not being unreasonable and nitpicky, but it's just that was our hired gun that we chose to sub out. So I think we can do this safely, but provide a much more reasonable customer experience. And frankly, I think probably be more accommodating as a city that operates with 100-plus-year-old buildings. I think that there's staff within the county and other towns that feel this way as well.
The segue on that, I'm also a code official, and so it would be nice to have a single point of contact. Having a single point of contact is way better than what I currently experience with the revolving door of who's doing the inspection today and how familiar are they with particular code parameters, especially with those two. They might know IBC, they've all got to know for a building inspector, right? Building code, that's all you have to know. But fire code, we have to know like 4 different codes. So we're relating how they all work together, and they're all almost verbatim. And we spend a lot of time negotiating with building inspector. Like, yeah, I see where you see that, but actually, if you really got to deal with 2 codes that read this way, this is how it should be interpreted. Having a single point of contact means all that up, and even for other reasons, there's a huge amount of stuff. There's a bunch of benefits that knows, with along with improved compliance, being easier to work with.
Well, I'm just, I'm coming from the perspective that as a customer service person, I've heard a lot about it.
Exactly.
That's all. I'll leave it at that.
Of course, there's always the planner slots open. We're gonna keep going.
We're gonna, well, I'll let Andy speak just a little bit, but we have interviews tomorrow for 3 planners. What Andy, and I don't know, you want to talk about the structure or?
Sure. Yes, we are hiring a planner. We did another advertisement, and we did get some good candidates. We have 3 we've invited to interview remotely tomorrow. And I was pretty optimistic last time. It just didn't, one reason or another, the candidates withdrew last time for good reasons. I mean, one took a job in Washington State, another decided to stay where he was, and another decided the pension in his home state was too good to leave. So now we started again. We have 3 candidates. I'm quite confident we'll not get one hired this time. We have changed the reporting structure a little bit, that the planner will report to John. So John will be this year's assistant administrator position. He'll also function as the community development director. He'll have a high level, which he really does now. He'll have a high level oversight of planning, and then the planner will do the day-to-day work as a structure. So slight change, but I think it will be good for the organization. And John done a tremendous job in this interim position, but we can't keep having him do 2 positions entirely.
Yeah.
So he'll continue doing about 10% of the planning, I think, once we get this planner position on. And then the planner would do about the other 90%, all the day-to-day stuff that John's now doing, keeping all the balls in the air.
The only other 2 things I've got in the 10-20 funds are the parking management services. I have it in here saying take it in-house. I also think it may be a good idea to issue an RFP for the services. I don't know if you guys saw, there was an article about us in the Golden Paper last week about basically our program running relatively well and being successful. And it is, but especially since we've changed the parking model, what we've seen is it didn't affect our transactions, raising our prices the way we did. The transactions actually went up this summer. They're most we've ever had. And so while our revenue has gone up, our share to interstate for providing exact same services this entire time have remained the same. So they're just, which is good for them. They signed a good contract. But just like any city contract, we should look at that and make sure we're getting the best deal. I do think that there is an opportunity for us to look at taking the ambassadors in-house specifically. Again, for a customer service perspective, I think we can always improve on our customer service. But if we found the right company, I think, and it could be interstate, maybe be in agreement with them.
This may be a better contract for the city.
I think we could look at that. And I think it's something that is just, there's going to start, especially after the parking structure is built, we're going to start having a revenue source that's relatively significant from parking. And I think it's just good to keep the community in mind about what we're doing with that money.
When it comes to the parking, John, just to give my 2 cents, trying to house that company within the city by our own hires, I think would be tremendously difficult, just knowing what we know about locals wanting to work. And especially in a position where you're going to be getting people tickets or not, that could be non-compliant in neighborhoods that may be your neighbors. It did not work out in the past when we had, I don't know if you know what we called it, it was, John, you were on council with me, was the gal that drove around and basically just drove around, smoked cigarettes in her car and didn't enforce anything because she knew everybody. So I just try to stay away from that as much as possible in town when, having neighbors, police neighbors, I think is just never gonna be.
It's no fun getting yelled at Safeway.
What's that?
It's no fun getting yelled at Safeway after.
No, absolutely not. I completely agree. I mean, search for another, a better deal, but that's just my 2 cents about what was doing it.
I'd like to also maybe have a parking task force again, like we did several years ago, and just look at our policies and procedures. I think most of them have gotten better, but I think also we have some people in our community who weren't here when it started and don't even know they can get free parking, which has happened a lot lately. So I'd like to look at our parking world and make sure it's what we want it to be.
One thing I might add to this, just to toot our horn a little bit, is the reason that Golden is looking at our program is they don't have a managed parking program in Golden. Golden's a bigger jurisdiction than we are, but it has a lot of similarities to us as far as the situation of downtown. And we, as Idaho Springs, are seen as, we've gone through some pain implementing this program. And a lot of credit goes to John for getting this program up and running and keeping it vital to our city. But we are being seen by other jurisdictions as, oh, look at Idaho Springs and what they've done there. Not only does it provide revenue and help manage your parking for visitors, but it protects your residential areas with the residential permit program. So I just thought I'd throw that out, but that's the reason that Golden was looking at us, is they don't have it, but they're considering it because they're having similar challenges there.
People are getting everything.
The last 2 items I have for you on admin: consideration of work order software. Most municipalities have some kind of digital work order tracking software now, and that can be used for everything from like a 311 type service where a citizen could issue, like, say, I have this problem by my house, like whatever, maybe we have a pothole or whatever, to like when Patty interacts with Paul's staff for utility billing. And the one that we've looked at the most, the industry leaders, is Brightly software. It's a little pricey to get started up. It's almost $18,000. $9,000 is a one-time cost, and then the rest is just ongoing. But some of the things about the software that are really great is it allows you to track inventory. You can put things on a GIS map so you can see where your problem areas, like especially water sewer billing, or issues where maybe you find out you have an issue with a particular piece of pipe, whatever the case may be. It's relatively robust software. And we would like to implement something, whether it's this software or maybe a slightly cheaper solution. Patty has looked into I think 6 alternatives, and she's getting some other pricing. And we would want to come back and talk to council about this when we're ready to implement it. But this is something I think that we, as we continue to look at process improvement and user experience, we really need to start tracking our workflows a little bit better from just a communication standpoint with internally with staff and then externally with the public too, so we can say what we're doing a little bit more. The last one I have, I didn't put it on this main list. It's in 10-20-52-15. That's our employee incentive line item. I talked to Andy the mayor about this, but I think that we offer a really good incentive of the rec center, and we give Christmas bonuses every year, which are great to all employees. So every employee can go to the rec center. Every employee gets a Christmas bonus. A lot of other cities have a program, a wellness program. We have talked about this in the past about ski passes, and there's obvious reasons why ski passes aren't maybe the most equitable choice. But what we could do is create a program where people could use it for a certain wellness related item, whether that is running shoes or like a health watch or whatever, ski pass, massage, those kinds of things. And what we would do is we build a program where certain costs are eligible, and then employees could use it over the course of the year, like in a one-time purchase, and we would verify the purchase, and we could reimburse them or however we decide to do it. I put in here $500 per employee. We don't have that many employees, and I don't think it would actually cost the city that much money to do that. And I think what it would do is it would give an additional, just an additional benefit for working for the city. We are, I think, pushing a little bit more this year with what we're doing with retirement and some other things to make sure our employees are we have well-rounded care for the employee team here. And I think this is another benefit that encourages that health and wellness kind of approach that we've been taking for the city. So those are my admin budget requests. I have some for community promotion too, but I will pause for a second there.
Do you want just to elaborate on your last one? I like the idea, by the way. I think it's good. I think it's a great incentive. I myself, when I was offered this at the school that I worked for, was only for skiing, and I don't ski, so I didn't get anything. So I love the idea of it being well-rounded, even up to, hey, I need LASIK surgery and my down payment is $5,000. Can I use that 500 as part of that deductibles that I meant? So I mean, so think of like really far out of the box, like that's something that would cover everybody as long as it was medical and wellness and related. I think I'd be okay with it.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, and I think we bring this back to council to get final approval of whatever program we do. So,
sure.
Okay. On community promotion, a lot simpler. What I would really like to do is think about refocusing that budget a little bit. We have some stuff that's there because it's been there. And I'd like to look at some of these things that we do and how we do them. One is, I think really the point of this budget is we subsidize the community center. We promote the downtown marketplace, and then we support community organizations like KGO, CCMRD, those kinds of places. In the community center, I really mean the business center. And so I think we should really think about, especially as we move into this period of heavy construction in the city, how we market and maintain the vitality of our downtown businesses. So to that end, we're going to have a meeting of the downtown property owners and business owners relatively soon to start talking about what we're going to do when construction happens to make sure people know we're open. We need to engage in some more marketing efforts for downtown as a city. Sales tax is our primary way that we pay for residential services. And I'd really like to make sure that we come up with some good plans to make sure our businesses downtown are sustainable, and that we balance that with the needs of our residents and the needs of our whole community together. But that's kind of what I'm going with here. So I've got some I'd like to put some money into marketing, and I think website, potentially if we get a new city website, that could just be a part of the city website that could be used by the downtown businesses and the East End businesses. We have these little nodes of business that we've created through the city now that could use that to kind of market as they will. I have a couple of line items related to our city events. One, I'd like to kind of combine our city events for a little bit more transparency so that we can have some city-sponsored events that we do all the time that we could have a little bit of money for, but right now it's kind of like, well, there might be money here or there. So for instance, Halloween is a really big event for the city now with the kids. We'd like to keep promoting that and make it a good event for them because that is a primarily residential event. 4th of July, we all know how it is here on the 4th of July. We've had some shoestring budgets that have worked for a long time, up keeping things together. And last year, there were some cracks that came because we've lost some really long-term capacity to manage that event, just people who are involved are no longer involved, and we need to have like, we have to have all the rangers here that day. We really could have more admin staff here that day, it would be really helpful. We rely on volunteers right now for some of the critical roles that are not the best suited for volunteers. And so I'd like to increase the budget for that so we can continue to get vans. We're gonna need to either purchase a stage or we're gonna have to continue renting a stage. And our stage rental costs and sound costs are gonna go up if we continue renting to maybe like $7,000 an event, $4,000 to $7,000-ish. We're gonna also buy a stage. We had a deal to buy a stage this year that it just ended up being a bad deal, so we said no. But stages, you can pay anywhere from $30,000 to $80,000-ish. I would like to consider doing that. I think the rec center could use it. We could also rent it out, which would recover some of the cost. So I've been looking for a used one within our budget right now, but there's just not one for sale.
I think that's a great idea, and I just want to interject, if you didn't like the weather, I know Ritchie Brothers had an incredibly nice one a few years ago, but they aren't that common. So, you may go a few years and then all of a sudden there's 3 in 3 months. But I think it'd be money well spent,
John,
especially where the rentals are.
right, John, is there any opportunity, working at the library and hearing sometimes through the grapevine what's going on in the city, I don't think there's a collective of us doing these things together to sort of take the pressure off the city in particular, but even the library or the rec center, when it comes to Halloween or Christmas. I mean, I know it was a long time ago and I kind of gave up on it, but I used to help put the Christmas tree lighting together. I just think there's a way that we should sit down with those 3 entities in particular, and then anybody that was, the rapid grass people, I think would be helpful to interject and just talk about something like we do as a collective. Okay, you guys are going to do the candy, you know what I mean? Rather than us all spreading ourselves incredibly thin, I just think there's an opportunity to kind of make it work.
I agree with you. We've had some people who felt very strong ownership over certain things over the last few years. I think that is ending a little bit, and I would really like to get that going. That's what I was thinking. We had our economic recovery task force, and that was what it was doing during COVID. Right. It's been a little bit message lost lately, but what I would like to do is revitalize that group. I'm just going to speak frankly. The chamber right now is not capable of being an organization. We need to maintain the chamber, and we need to keep working on it to make it into something more. But right now, if I had it my way, I would redo the Vitality Task Force and start bringing the organizations you just mentioned, and whoever wants to come do whatever. I want to bring a one, come all approach.
Right.
But I think Christmas would be a really good one to start. We'd love to bring, Sadie and I have been doing primarily the programming. Last year, we had Santa and his reindeer come, and it was like the best Christmas tree lighting that we've had since I've been here, for sure. We'd like to do that more often. We can have very small budget and have Santa here at least one more time, maybe 3 times, and things like that. But there's some times, especially in the shoulder seasons, where we could potentially have events either on 16th or maybe close one block like we did for the pizza celebration this spring. And I think that would be a better use of our time and money as well for the city and trying to pack in more people in the summertime.
Are we looking at taking it out of the box and not having a Christmas tree lighting with guys at the setup, but something that's more kind of 2023, where we have the collagen situation?
Yeah. Our Christmas tree contract, our Christmas light contract, we signed that in COVID because we were unsure about, we didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
That's up next year. So we kind of are locked in on lights this year, and he's going to come and install probably in the next 2 weeks, likely, because he does that super early for some reason. But next year, I'd like to look at that and see what we can do. We talked about another thing we could do is the light parade downtown Denver isn't quite what it used to be. And I'm not saying we do something like that, but we think we could do like similar to what we do for homecoming, when the kids do floats and things like that, and maybe decorate the car. And then we do like a little procession through town kind of deal with maybe a prize. We could do something like that in the time. We've been looking at a smaller scale, like what can we do there? Because we used to have also, if you remember the Christmas, the businesses had a competition for lights.
And
Yeah. And we, some of that stuff would be, we're one of the towns that people come to see lights and to see all that stuff. So
it's not for me to say one way or the other, but we do have this beautiful new park at the library that has a circle that a fake tree that's coming in, and just like a hologram would be the perfect setting for that fake tree. So anyway, yeah. Thanks, Sean.
I'll see if I can find one.
Kate, what were the organizations that you mentioned that you coordinated with?
Absolutely. Rapid Grass, because they throw such a great event every year. CC and MRD does a terrific job. Library is trying, and then, Mountain Youth Network, we should be talking to those guys and finding out what they're doing, because they're taking over the kids on Fridays. So there's a lot of people doing a lot of little things. I mean, all these little things together make a big thing. So I think we can, and I don't mind coming back in and brainstorming with people. I just got a little burned out after Halloween and Santa for about 7 years. I was just I was done for a while. So I don't mind helping again.
Santa's been super fun the last couple of years. It's
I'm
been a
sure,
lot easier, so. We do need one thing that I'd like to do, and I'll come back to ask council for this officially, but we could use some kind of setting for Santa in the park, because we just kind of stick him on a folding chair. It would be nice, not that he needs a throne, but something that you can take a picture with that's a little better. And so I've been kind of looking at rental potential for that.
Well, we've got really great artists at the library that would probably commission something for a fee. But
Okay.
he's a very good artist, and he has done things on plywood. So his name is Joe, and I think you
Okay.
can come by and review some stuff. He could probably make us a nice little throne, and Doug could probably help support it so it doesn't fall on top of it. Hurt a kid.
One other just quick note, Sites and Facilities Committee work. HPRC is going to talk about some of that work tomorrow and start thinking about maybe we need to re-update the contract with the Historical Society about how we manage the sites and facilities owned by the city. And there's no real dedicated idea yet. Before COVID, we had talked about a new agreement based on what we already have with the Historical Society, but we are going to start talking about that tomorrow, and that might affect the commission of the small line item.
John, the rest of your report is just a reference for council for now.
Yeah, I wanted
Your
to,
presentation.
I just wanted to give you an idea. This doesn't have all of it, but if you'd like to know what I try to have our staff do is kind of start putting what bills we put in what places. If you'd like to see that, I'm happy to share it. But I just went through here and tried to give a general idea of what we're doing in each line item.
Then we'll go on with water, wastewater, public works. Another work.
Nope, we're gonna be hearing from Ed and Paul tonight. Anything else, Tim?
Nope, I think I'm good unless there's a question.
Thank you, John. That looks good. And who do we have next? Ed?
Ed,
Ed, please come on up.
Yes. Looking at my dogs in the backyard, apparently they're getting in some serious trouble over there.
Be a rabbit.
We've had some big bears, so Charlie's being really aggressive in the backyard these days. He's so big. And he has tiny little feet, by the way. He's like this big.
Ed, floor is yours.
So, good news. The water plant and the wastewater treatment plant, we've already dumped a whole bunch of money into that stuff. And it's working great.
Awesome. There's no wet time, right?
No. Everything, if I don't see us needing to do any major upgrades, I don't see any, there's no way that the state would say, you guys need to do better than what we're already doing, especially for 2024. Maybe in the water plant in the future, but the wastewater treatment plant works great. We do need to have, according to the state and, me, have somebody being a backup ORC. Oh, yeah. Or lead operator. The state outlines this whole thing about how if you have an ORC, you should have a backup. Or if you've got a guy that's licensed, do it. I have a lead operator position that I've already created a job description for, and he's got it. I'd like to see that for next year. And then you have an additional operator to cover for, vacations if somebody quits. We can help Paul out with meters, and, just stuff like that. And that would bring us over to where we were at full staff and we'd be able to do these projects when they come, when they're done, rather than putting them off. And we had like the filters in the water plant, sat in the water plant for 6 months before we put all of them together and.
So when I was interim public works, they give me a sheet every month to ask the employees, well, you have so much time leave and you're not taking it. It said, because I can't take off. So just help justify it. Yeah, you just can't take off time. So,
It goes beyond that. It goes beyond, you get sick or
oh,
son
yeah.
gets sick and he's worried about prioritizing the job over what he should be taking care of. That's not fair to use.
So,
He was handling one other operator.
Right, and Bob.
Yeah.
I'm at
And that's where it
430
sometimes.
hours.
Oh my God, doing great content.
Yeah, of PTO. Gee.
is it possible, I mean, obviously you need somebody to staff, to get yourself to full staff. Is it possible to get anybody that's on your staff trained to be ORC?
Yes, there's already a guy that works for us that's licensed and holds the licenses and pretty much does the things already that I've outlined in the job description that I've given him. It would be more like let's accurately describe what he really does.
Okay,
for
gotcha.
me, rather than creating a new position.
All
You
right,
know,
so we're
other
not
than
that
the
far away
paperwork.
from it happening, where you
Right.
guys can have a break.
No.
Yeah, and Ed, I appreciate you going first, because I bet council is probably unanimous, feels that you should have a second, and I mentioned you going first, because I know they're feeling similar about.
Right, Paul's in the same boat. We have just not all this work and nobody. And
That's
nobody involved.
kind of a complicated system. Gotta-
So wastewater plant, we might need to put in a tertiary filter in as a maintenance item. It's $11,500 to do it. But the reason I'm putting possibly do it is because as long as I can get the thing clean, I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna use it in the better time. And let's say, even if the thing goes bad completely, and you have to bypass it, the Nareda is functioning well enough that it will meet effluent standards even without the filter. So I'm gonna wait until that's broken. A loading dock extension down there, just to make it so that it's more usable. Instead of having it back, you can back up straight through the building instead of off to the side, which just makes everything really difficult, real cheap thing to do. Water plant, we've had the Clearwell pump on the budget for, I think, 5 years now. I think the original quote that I got for it was 35K. I talked to a guy yesterday, said they're running about 50 now, but I mean, it's broken. We have 2 pumps there. We wanted to do. One breaks, we got a little bit of time to get a new one, but it's an expensive thing. It may never break. Ongoing stuff from this year that will be pushed into next year is going to be Natty Dam, the Montana tank construction, the rockfall mitigation, which I've got. There's 3 contractors coming up on Wednesday to all make bids on doing some rockfall mitigation to keep the tank safe.
there's a rock up there the size of a van. It's just dangling off the edge. They're probably going to tie it back into the mountain. So now that we know that, it's kind of important to get that done. Fix up the lower intake. So when we do Matty Dam, we're gonna need to get water to the plant somehow. But I've got a plan to just fix up the lower intake in-house. Should be a pretty cheap undertaking just to get it to clean it out, make sure all the valves work. Might have to replace a valve or something. No big deal. We'd like to get some concrete pads for the propane tanks, so they don't fall into the, maybe some bollards, so they don't fall into the creek. You guys get up there, they're right next to the creek. And you guys already, thank you very much. We ordered filters for the water plant for next year.
Nice things.
This year with, and save that 16K.
Yep.
One of the things that John said that I would be interested in looking at is his work order program, if we decide to do that. I've been doing work orders on Excel, and it's just kind of disorganized. You know, might be easier to like recall data if it was all in the work order system. It might be cool. So when John gets around to that, I'd like to check that out and see if it would work for us too. Paul's had a couple of sessions looking at them, and I'll make sure Patty includes you in look at the next one and start talking about it.
Cool. Well, Dick has solved that, but I haven't seen on any others. So it seems fairly straightforward, but I don't know. I'd like to see some other options, see what else is out there.
The one I put in my staff report is, I'd like to set up a meeting for everybody.
Yeah, he's been able to see the value for 40 minutes.
All right, so stuff that's not on the list. I want to move some money from, since I'm not buying a new truck. Move some money from buying a new truck into like fixing trucks. And, you know, fixing that truck up a little bit, a few $1,000 for that this year. Other than that, we're just adjusting some stuff in there so it makes more sense.
Well, that's only about 5% of the cost of a new truck.
Yeah. Maybe I can do 10. That's
RV pump station, the county put an axe on it, or?
it's kind of on hold until, what they asked for was some things that cannot be accomplished until after the road is open and there's traffic. Like a traffic study, and then they wanted to see how many bicycles were gonna be on the sidewalk.
For the dump next to the treatment plant.
Yeah, you know, and then there was that whole 90 degrees perpendicular to the road rule, which we could kind of meet. We got close, but not really.
They about 15 degrees.
Within, yeah, 15 degrees from 90.
75 or 105.
Yeah, I think we got to like 68. But then after we met that, we were all traffic study.
Even know that centrally post, you still can't do it.
Right, yeah, because that was how we were meeting then, getting as close as we could, because you had that idea of a flare all the way down, which would bring them past our gate, which would be ideal for us, but we got to one more degree of turning, we did it that way.
So just something to think about. County Road 314 is mostly within city limits. And the section between the RV storage lot and the wastewater treatment plant is actually in the county, just the road. It's completely surrounded, very, very interesting, completely surrounded by city limits, except the road. Of course, it's a county road. We may want to think about whether or not it makes sense for the city to take control of that road. Because we're gonna have a public works facility located down at the wastewater treatment plant, have our other staff operating the wastewater treatment plant there, going back and forth all the time. And then we, as a city, can decide how to best use that road, and how it works within our city. And source, it's our connection other than the interstate to Hidden Valley, and that road is going to be brand new all the way through. So I just raised this now because that is something we might want to take a look at as part of the overall. But does that make sense for our city? Is that a way we can better manage having a fill and dump station in that area that we just say now we have control of that as opposed to state or the county, and we just say this is within city limits, this is how this works. Just something to think about.
Yeah, well, and I know the county asked about taking over the trail down to Hidden Valley.
Right, in the current agreement, when CDOT met with us about doing improvements to that section of the greenway and building the greenway, the agreement we reached with the county, with the consent of CDOT, was that the city would maintain the greenway from the roundabout to the RV storage area. And then the county would maintain the greenway that goes right along 314 from the RV storage all the way to Hidden Valley. So that's the current agreement, but I do wonder if it makes more sense for the city to just do that. I mean, I've talked with staff about it. It wouldn't be that much more to run that distance down the greenway and plow it down to the wastewater treatment plant and to plow that section of road, because the vehicles are going back and forth to the main part of the city. And it'll be a brand new road, so it won't need to be repaired or updated for quite a few years.
Plus we get help that tax.
Plus we get some additional highway user tax funding as well. And it takes the burden off the county, which is, strapped to maintain the roads they have now.
I would assume that they're not taking care of the road right now, but the city's doing it.
No, they are.
They are,
It
they're
is a
taking
county,
a
it is a
truck.
county road, yeah. So from, all the way from, the vault, the turnoff there at the on-ramp, all the way down to Hidden Valley, it's County Road 314, it's owned and maintained by the county.
And they're doing a good job? The county did a good job. Yes, you don't have to say it out loud. but-
Not exactly.
Okay.
They do a fair job. It's not a road that they get multiple times. They probably
Right.
get it once for a while, drop their sand. And they really have some other duties and.
Oh, I'm not trying to give them any crap, because it's part of the field, I understand, that's why I'm asking. It does kind of make sense to me, like it does to Andy, that it's kind of,
It's
it's
not
not do have
close
a
to-
name.
We do have the first winter with the new road. We may see something completely different than
Right,
we've seen in the past.
It's not close to any other county road, really,
Right,
so
it's
it's
not.
a little bit out of the way for them. So I know it's additional burden to us, but I think that the benefits may outweigh the additional.
well, I could look at it in the worst case
Awesome.
scenario, something happens at the water treatment plant and these guys can't get there because the county is unable to get there and service it. So we're doing it anyway, so that would be, to me, like, we not definitely need to be able to get there. Kind of makes more sense than we're the ones doing it in the first place.
Right,
So get ahead of
usually
the
there
game.
would be a lot of sand after it snowed in the spring. But it's also got way better drainage curves and others.
Yeah, I was just over there, yeah.
It may do some of its own maintenance. Because because all the water road is downhill, right?
Ah, gotcha.
It is heavily shaded, maybe that came up already, but that presents challenges with
Sure.
maintaining that road.
Yeah.
All right, any more questions, Fred?
Mayor, if I may just add
Yes.
two items that Ed mentioned on the Matty Dam construction, we're well into design on that project. And we did just submit a pre-application for a Colorado Water Conservation Board grant. And we were invited to submit an application for that after our pre-application, all right?
I think we have to fill out the second application since we fill out the first.
That's right. We're waiting to go to speak to the pre-application, and then we'll be invited to apply for the grant. So we are trying to seek grant funding from the CWCB. We have, as a city, received grant funding from that organization in the past, the distant past. We have a couple loans with them, small loans with them. They deal in loans and grants for raw water projects. And of course, the Matty Dam being before our water treatment plant is a great example of a project that they typically will help fund. This isn't a huge project in the total scheme of things. I kind of feels funny saying that, but this is about a $600,000 project. But then we look at some of the other water and sewer projects we have out there. It's relatively, it's a smaller project. So I want you to know we are trying to obtain some grant funding for this project, maybe low interest loan funding. More likely grant funding is what we're going for on this project to offset some of the costs. The other project here, the Montane Tank, we periodically have a sanitary survey that's conducted by CDPHE of the city, of our operations. And this was one of the areas that the state needs us, they want us to make progress on with the Montane Tank, because there are enough deficiencies in that tank that we need to get that tank replaced. I think you all have a sense of that already, but I just want to let you know we are well into design, not design, but well into looking at the feasibility of where to relocate that tank in the immediate area there up the top of Montane. This likely would involve some property, either easement or acquisition in order to relocate the tank. So we'll be coming back to council in the very near future with an update on this project to let you know the various sites that we've looked at up at the, right above Divide View there, and with a recommendation to council as well before we proceed into the actual design and talking to a property owner about either an easement or actually purchasing a part of that property. We recently met with the Forest Service, because as you know, most of the property above Divide View to the south is Arapahoe National Forest, but there are some parcels of private property that may also work. And we think, after meeting with the Forest Service, that it will likely be a much quicker and process working with a private property owner than trying to go through all the approvals you need when you build something on Forest Service property. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. More is coming in an upcoming work session, but this is a high priority project because the state is interested in what our timeline is to get these deficiencies fixed.
Yeah, they are, yes.
And basically, it's a tank replacement. What needs to happen? That's all. They want us to increase inspection. They want us to keep an eye on this or that, but basically the solution is to replace the tank and also increase the size of the tank as well.
Right, well, increasing the size of the tank is more for the firefall stuff. But the condition of the tank is not good.
But we also have to relocate to
It would be best to do that.
it's right next to a home up there, right in someone's yard,
Right,
right by the driveway.
Isn't the tank below right now that needs to be above?
I would likely be
They put a
either
home next door.
completely above or partially submerged.
And it's an economical advantage to people, right? As a company in the middle.
Not we as an aspect.
That the Maine Forest Service will require you to see a drop of all
Right.
opportunities to put on
We
private.
just said the exact words that she told us.
I've met with her also. And
Forest Service doesn't sell off some of their land.
No, but they say if you've exhausted all options to put on private, the last thing left is the Forest Service. You go through the NEPA process, and a whole bunch of things have to happen.
Take over.
1 year to 5
It
years,
would.
depending on how
At
long.
least.
And that's even to try to purchase from the Forest Service.
That's just put on Forest Service program without permission. Yeah, I've had several people go out to the projects in the community.
It opened my eyes a little bit. I had a sense, but then when we met with them, we
She
said,
is,
oh,
she
okay.
is amazing what she does. She's very straightforward.
Yeah.
There's no question of, what about this?
She's answered all the questions, just stay for us.
And I just want to make sure everybody heard what Paul had mentioned. I think it's critical. The city had allowed the house to be built next to the tank. All those years ago.
It's kind of a crazy house to begin with. Just the
Right.
driveway down to the well, I mean, to the holding tank is crazy. And then the 55 steps from the bottom driveway up is also a little nuts.
Is that what it is? Like 55 steps?
It seems like it. I used to go to parties up there. Like,
I've
that's
seen
like
it.
the
I
longest
never
walk
actually-
up to the house I've
There's
ever been
something in
on
that region.
in the middle of the night.
That is correct.
What's that?
It's in the 57.
It's a lot. And I wasn't, it's like 4 stories. At least it feels like that.
We've had to haul tools up those steps in the winter time.
Yeah, 'cause you can't get down that driveway.
The truck can't get the driveway, or we don't want to get down there and get stuck in the water.
Yeah, our friends used to live up there. It was crazy.
Right,
So-
turning
so you're
around
building an
on that road,
old-
in their driveway is insane.
They just backed up.
Essentially having easements on their property for that tank. It never should have happened. And that development went in, and the Montane development went in, that lot where that tank was should have been granted to the city, and our current code says that that should have happened. I don't know what the code said back then. But we have other areas like that in Riverside as well, where we have our city utilities in private property, and it shouldn't be that way, and we have to go back and fix these things later. Which creates a whole new headaches.
Paul,
This
thanks
is one of
for
our
expanding on
headaches.
that. I just wanted everybody to hear that. What's going on with it.
When we have infrastructure on a piece of property, we should not be trying to build residential right next to it. And so they would conflict with one another.
Yeah.
Let's leave into a question later on.
Anything further for Ed?
Yeah, depending on where we put that tank too, we still need easements and whatnot.
Depending on the spot that we got.
All right, anything further? Ed, thank you. And
No, thank you.
all, we really appreciate your patience.
No worries.
Come on down.
So I didn't have a nice piece of paper for you, but as far as the majority of the budget here, most of my line items were just minor increases to just cover increased costs in those items. I did have a couple of requests. One was for a new truck. We are pretty hard on our vehicles, same as the police. They are a working vehicle. They do take some abuse. We do the best we can to take care of these trucks, but they do take some abuse. Another one was for an increase in a line item that I have found really, really useful. It's other professional services. Now, my parks guys are doing a great job. I have 2 guys in parks now that are full-time parks. Whereas before, we'd only had 1 guy and maybe somebody else helping out on occasion. But now I have 2 full-time guys. And they've been able to track these parks a little bit better because I've taken away the side projects that were distracting them. And we've gone to a line item called other professional services where the pavilion needs painting, bridge rails need painting. I need a new roof on something. This is a line item that I had a fairly significant increase in. And it was to keep my parks crew focused on what they need to be focused on, which was parks and maintaining those parks. I think they're starting to work a little bit better. Our irrigation system got a lot better. They've made a lot of repairs to that have gone through a lot of neglect over the years. My new guys in, well, at least my new guy in water, he's working really well. We are trying to get a grip on those meters, and I know it is really we've all come together and everybody's been seeing these meters from different points of view. And I think, folks are starting to see the public works side of this where they are not, it's not something that we can just go right up to and replace it. Some of these things take time. So we're working together with city staff here, with the city hall staff here, and to best facilitate getting into these homes as quickly as possible to get these meters taken care of. And it's going to be an appointment type schedule where we send notification out, try and get these folks to call in so that they can tell us what time we need to be there. I did have another request, and we've done accounts on the employees for Public Works. And Andy's come up that I have an empty position. I've come up, I've had an empty position, but it wasn't a funded position. We'd like to turn this into a full-time job, our full-time employment. And in that, it would be a supervisor position. Now, I don't currently have anybody that I think would be a great fit for that supervisor position, because this supervisor position also needs somebody that can operate the equipment, not just a piece of equipment, but all the equipment. It's very important to have a crew lead out there that can do every job on the site. And that was kind of my thing before I stepped up to another role, and finding somebody to fill that position. All my guys are good at what they do, but they don't do everything. And it wasn't the best at everything, but I could do everything. So this would be the type of role that I try to fill with a full-time position, have a supervisor. Now, I don't think I would hire a supervisor into that role, but maybe bring somebody on board, let them get a feel for the crew get a feel for them, and maybe put that would be when I stepped in to make that person type of supervisor type role. I'm in the same boat as Ed. I don't see myself taking any time off. I haven't taken any time off almost since February, so my hours have racked up as well.
Okay, Paul, so I was just gonna ask you, because Ed was telling us he's got like 11 weeks. I mean, that's just wrong on a dozen different levels.
I'm at 370 some odd hours there too. So
And I am really sorry. But I think it's important that council hears.
keep in mind, we've also had years of accumulation too. So I had several years when we were doing Colorado Boulevard, I didn't take any time off there as well. I didn't start using vacation until after we're done with Colorado Boulevard.
What's our policy on payout? Like, at least give them like the money.
It's a use it or lose it. So we can keep up
Yeah,
to
but-
411, I believe.
That's
is the
our
hours.
policy, isn't that our policy? I think we could make an amendment on that policy, because that's ridiculous.
Like Ed's already passed the max right now, and Paul's sitting there at 9 weeks.
I
It's
think,
crazy.
I'm not in this discussion because I don't have any admin background, but I definitely think you guys should talk about it, like, even if, I mean, obviously, taking the days off is much more important,
Yes,
but having it in my bank account that I'm not gonna lose the fact that I didn't take any vacation would be at least something to like,
I follow you, and I think the really good news for council is we have the ability to fix this, and I don't think anybody here thinks these two guys they ought to have a second.
I think so.
Right, I agree, I mean, it's mental health, you get burnout, I got.
But I'll tell you, having a little cash in the bank makes the mental health get a little better. It's like,
And that's not good. When I first growing up, and all this stuff. But yeah,
It's a pretty long day. That's what you have to pay it out. Yeah, we turn it over. But you can manage that. The best case scenario is that people do get to take some time off. That's really.
100%.
Right.
I think that's
You
what
want them to
it's,
save up some, right? So
Yeah.
they have it in case of emergency, but you want to have people able to take time off.
but I think this is what they've done, and I think actually what they're coming to with these two other positions is to say, we need to start being able to take time off. But let's rectify the fact that we're really behind.
I think the reality is, neither one of these individuals will ever be able to take enough
400.
PTO off.
Yeah.
To get ahead of it without
Yeah.
getting the max again.
Dave,
Other organizations have been
Same
involved with
for
the
many, many
individual
years.
payouts of a percentage of that tree PTO, that we then release the amount.
It's gonna be like a
Kind of right
one-time
to
thing,
ship
as
with
far as
the
I'm
guys
concerned.
that they have staffing that allows them to take future PTO if they're in. It's twofold, when you pay it out, but you also give them the ability to actually be able to take time off by having
The person in
staff.
place, right?
They can do the job when they go on vacation.
Just to say that would help me out a lot with stress,
I think it helps both of you guys.
because I'll get a paycheck and say 430 hours. How am I gonna take that time off before I lose it? So I've been finding myself coming to work, doing everything as fast as I possibly can get it done, so I can leave and then worry about it when I'm not there for the next day.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's usually the policy, but we can rectify that here in this room. We can say, and again, I don't know what the rules are, so I don't know what you guys do, but you guys can say whatever it is that you want to get them to a reasonable amount of PTO. And at least gives them the benefit of having the money in the bank until we can get them some mental health.
And I'm sorry, is the limit 410?
It's in that range, so that 410 hours. That was kind of a sidebar, but
No, it's a good sidebar to know about, by the way.
I do plan on using my hours. I don't know if I will be, and I shouldn't be in a position the same as Ed. By the time of the end of the year, I should be fine with taking my vacation time when I take my vacation time. And I do have, the guys that I work with are capable of managing themselves. What I don't have is, somebody to point to say, hey, you're in charge today, you're in charge this week, you're in charge these 2 weeks while I'm out.
Minute.